الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على رسول الكريم وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم تسليما كثيرا وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له له الملك وله الحمد وهو على كل شيء قدير وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله الآخر في الدنيا والأول في الآخرة ولا نبي بعده عليه الصلاة والسلام ثم أما بعد. To praise in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's no deity to be worshipped except Him. He is alone, without any partners, without any association with His creation. And we send salutations, blessings upon the noble Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That Prophet that is the last of the prophets in this life, but he will be the first of them on the day of resurrection. قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه الكريم يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. Notice I didn't say أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. Neither did I say بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Question mark. Why? I didn't say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim because it's not before the verse. Many people, when we give a talk, you find them saying Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim in places where it's not written. It's not proper, as explained by the ulama, from the Sahaba, and the examples of the Prophet, the examples of those scholars from the Sahaba, and then the second generation Tabi'een, and then the third Tabi'een, and then the likes of those in the end of the third generation, such as Imam al-Bukhari, Imam Muslim, Imam Abi Dawud, Tirmidhi, which they were contemporaries of one another, Imam Ibn Abi Shayba, and a host of others from amongst them, on down to this day, scholars of Islam from Ahl Sunnah. They mention when a person should say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim and when not, concerning the Quran. And that is if we were to say every time before the reading of Allah's book, keep in mind this is Allah's book, this is Allah's speech. If I was to quote a verse and say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim before it, but it's not found like that in the Quran, then this will mean one or two things. I have another Quran, wala yada billah, astaghfirullah, or that I'm putting something before the verse which would separate the verse prior to whatever I'm reading. Because the Basmala, the scholars have mentioned that one of the issues why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the Quran like that, Faslu Baina Suratain, that it could be the division or the dividing portion of the Quran or the dividing thing between the two surah, between the two chapters, so that the chapters are not ran together. So therefore, if the Basmala is not there, and you don't find the people reading it when they read the Quran, neither for salat, neither for giving ta'lim or lessons. And then you have وَإِذَا قَرَأْتَ الْقُرْآنَ فَاسْتَعِذَّ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ. And the verse of Allah itself, the speech of Allah, where He said, and whenever you, and the sequence of the verse is past tense, just like Allah said, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu idha kumtum ila salat, O you who believe, And the grammatical structure of the verse, it reads, when you have prayed, when you have stood to pray, pardon me. فَاقْصُلُوا وَجُوهَكُمْ وَأَيْدِيَكُمْ إِلَى الْمَرَافِقِ إِلَى الْآخِرِ ayah. Then wash your faces and your hands up to the elbows. Well, the scholars, they mention, although Allah spoke in the past tense for an intention of the human being, the meaning is either arada, when you want to pray, then wash your face, hands up to the elbows. Similarly, when you want to read the Quran, فَاسْتَعْذِ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ, then seek refuge in Allah from the shaitan, the wretched, the curse. However, if the Prophet ﷺ, in some of his lessons, some of the hadith you read, he mentioned something and then he mentioned the verse of Allah, and you didn't see in the statement of the Sahaba that the Prophet said, "A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem," and then read the verse, then it's perfectly okay in that regard for teaching to say it without what's called a ta'awuth, seeking refuge in Allah from the shaitan. But some people, they do it in their sittings of knowledge and so forth, and because you have a verse, then we don't blame them and they shouldn't blame us. Now, tayyib. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the verse we mentioned, Surah Al-Baqarah, O you who believe, fasting was prescribed for you as it was prescribed for those before you. And then Allah told you why, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, that you may be pious. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَلَقَدْ وَصَّيْنَا الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ وَإِيَّاكُمْ أَنِ اتَّقُوا اللَّهَ. And indeed, we have admonished and advised those nations before you, meaning O Muhammad, and you yourself and your nation, that they should fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وقال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه الكريم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. O you who believe, fear Allah. حق تقاته. There are different explanations of this part of the verse. The closest one in English means, and Allah knows best. And sometimes they say it's hard to translate. They don't mean literally, but with giving it the proper due, because it may be vague, it may not be as strong, it may not bring home the whole meaning. But most people say with a due that it is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But and here it means, some scholars say, to the best of your ability, because you're only held accountable for what you're able to do. So if you know something is wrong and you stay away from it, this is haqqa tuqatihi. You're giving that thing is right. You're staying away from it. And if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells you something that leads to the fire, you stay away from it, then you're giving it as haqqa tuqatihi. And if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you a choice between this and that, and they're okay, but one from amongst the two of those things could turn to something that can lead to punishment of the fire, even though it's good, you leave that off too. This is haqqa tuqatihi. Some of the scholars explain like this. وَلَا تَمُوتُنَّ إِلَّا وَأَنْتُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ. And don't die except you are in a state of submission, they mention, because the meaning of Islam, as the verse of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, he mentioned, وَأَنِبُوا إِلَىٰ رَبِّكُمْ وَأَسْلِمُوا لَهُ وَأَسْلِمُوا لَهُ وَأَنِبُوا إِلَىٰ رَبِّكُمْ وَأَسْلِمُوا لَهُ. وَأَنِبُوا, this means to repent, return back to obedience, leave off what you did wrong. وَأَسْلِمُوا لَهُ, and submit your face to him. This doesn't mean peace, as the people, they say Islam means peace. Even though the word salima, which is the origin of all of these words, taslim, salam, Islam, it comes from that word. It doesn't mean peace, because the rest of the verse proves that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after he said, وَأَنِبُوا إِلَىٰ رَبِّكُمْ, repent to your Lord, or return back to your Lord, وَأَسْلِمُوا لَهُ, and submit to him. Is there anyone who will understand and be peaceful to Allah? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, مِنْ قَبْلِ أَنْ يَأْتِيَكُمُ الْعَذَابِ مِنْ قَبْلِ أَنْ يَأْتِيَكُمُ الْعَذَابُ ثُمَّ لَا تُنْصَرُونَ, before the punishment reaches you for not repenting to Allah and not submitting to Allah, then you won't have any helper when the punishment comes. And this is why the scholars, they mention Islam means istislam lillah, bil inqiyad lahu wa inqiyad lahu bit ta'an wa tawheed. Istislam lillah يعني ماذا بالتوحيد وانقياد له بالطاعة والخلوص أو براء من شرك وأهله. They say Islam here means istislam lillah, submit yourself to Allah. This is the meaning of Islam. Istislam lillah, like you say lillahi ma fi samawati wa ma fil ard. Lillahi, that means it belongs to Allah. So the verse, ma fi samawati wa ma fil ard, that which is in the heavens. Samawati means heavens. Wa ma fil ard, like we say earth in Arabic is ard, and that which is on earth. So the verse, Allah is clearly saying everything belongs to him in the heavens and on earth. Here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when they say istislam lillah, that means submit yourself. Istislam means submit, surrender. So if I come in and you say istislam, and I put my hands up, that means surrender myself to you. When they say istislam lillah, that means surrender yourself, obey Allah. And then they make it clearer by saying bit tawheed. That's the first thing. By doing everything that Allah wants you to do for him. Not for him and Jesus Christ, for example. Not for him and Elijah Muhammad. Not for him and the great sheikh in Timbuktu or somewhere in Malaysia or like this. La. For Allah alone. And then they say, وَإِنْقِيَادَ لَهُ. Inqiyad here, the point as we're trying to make, means compliance. Inqiyad means to comply. How you can comply with Allah? Bit ta'ah, by obedience. So here, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned وَلَا تَمُوتُنَّ إِلَّا وَأَنْتُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ, all of that goes in the meaning of Muslimun. Doesn't mean just I took shahada 15 years ago and you don't pray, you drink, and you live a life like someone who didn't accept Islam. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned the point in this verse in the beginning, after he stressed the issue of belief, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, he said, ittaqullah. And the Prophet mentioned, this, he said, la yadkhulul jannah illa muttaqun. None will enter the paradise except those who are the muttaqun, the pious. Whether you're from this time or the times before, only the muttaqun will enter the Jannah. So because of this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us, this nation, of that when he said, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kutiba alaykumus siyam. So we won't feel left out, and we will feel favored. After Allah said, oh, you who believe, fasting has been prescribed for you, he didn't just stop. He said, Kama kutiba alladhina min qablikum. Qabl means before. Qablikum, those before you. So Tabarak wa Ta'ala is saying this clearly, you're not the only ones who have to fast. Rather, fasting has been prescribed for you, O you who believe, as it has been prescribed for those before you. And then Allah said, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, so that you may attain piety. This, when we talk about the issue of Ramadan, which is fastly approaching, وَنَسْأَلَ اللَّهَ أَن يُوَفِّقَنَا وَإِيَّاكُمْ بِاللِّقَائِهَا, ask Allah to give us and you tawfiq to see it, as we need a Ramadan. As our Sheikh, our brother Abdul Ahmed, this is one of his themes, because the people tripping so hard with disobedience to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. It was the Imam al-Nur. He said, we need a Ramadan. You know, because whether you like it or not, things chill out, things calm down in Ramadan. It's from the mercy of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. So here, yani Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, He knows we need a Ramadan. And we ask Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala to bless us to see it in good standing with Him, Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. When we talk about this, the Sheikh, he brings, Sheikh Uthaymeen, he has a book that he wrote called Majalis Shahr Ramadan, where he had a sitting, meaning a halaqah, where he discussed the things about Ramadan. And they took it and they transcribed it with his permission to book form. And the first thing he brings is a hadith that we must say the hadith is da'if jiddan. What is da'if jiddan? This means that the hadith is very unreliable, and that if someone is going to use it, as some scholars do, okay, using unauthentic hadith in their conditions. One of them is that a person must not work by that hadith. He must not use it, seek to use it as a way to follow, or they must not use it as an evidence for something. But they can extract from it some benefits. They can extract from it some type of virtues, but they can't use it to make a rule in the religion, as they say, a qaida or a principle, and they can't use it as an evidence for something. And this is where people, believe it or not, get the issue of fadal a'mal, using the hadith that is weak for the virtue of their deed. And some of the brothers, they have a book called, in English they messed it up, it's called Fadali Mal. Fadali Mal, like they're trying to say fadal a'mal. And the Tabligis, they are known, famous, and some of the people from the Asian continent for using this book. The issue is, this is a real live discussion amongst ulama of hadith. And most of the ulama of hadith, they say that it is not permissible to use hadith da'if, yani, except you announce the hadith as da'if. Why? So that people don't use it as evidence or don't try to derive from it principles that they can use in their religion. Number two, that the weakness must be slight. Like someone forgot to mention someone, or someone has a bad memory, but someone else can co-sign, no, this is what was said, I was there. These are slight weaknesses. Someone narrated on his sheikh, paraphrasing, but the sheikh didn't say that, but the meaning is similar. One person that's a tabi'i from the second generation, he narrates on the Prophet like a Zuhri and a Nabi. Zuhri is not a Sahaba, he's a tabi'i. So he has to mention the Sahaba who said on the Prophet. These are slight weaknesses. If you have someone says da'if jiddan, then this is a big one. So the weakness must be slight, must not be a major, must be a minor defect in the chain or problem with the people. This is the second condition for using the weak hadith. You must announce it. The weakness must be minor. And then they say thirdly, that there must not exist another hadith that is authentic that you can use in the first place. So the point is that there is a principle for using unauthentic hadith. And for this reason, you find Sheikh Uthaymeen using this hadith, but he is not using it as an evidence for something. He's using it to show the virtue of this ummah and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had blessed this nation in Ramadan with something that he didn't bless any other nations with. He mentions this hadith, which we mentioned again, it is not authentically reported on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Shaykh says that it's reported, one of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he said, "Utiyat ummati khamsa qasalin fi Ramadan lam yatuhunna ummatun qablaha. He said, verily this nation has been given 5 special things, 5 special characteristics, or 5 special characterized things that the nations before it was not given. Then the prophet, it was said that he mentioned those 5 things. Again, we say that the Sheikh is using this to show the virtues that we have in Ramadan, and this is not used as an evidence for anything. The first one, the Sheikh, he says, khulufu fahmi sa'im. Khulufu fahmi sa'im. Now, khulufu fahmi sa'im. The breath of the person who's fasting. And Allah karih misk. That normally, atib, and Allah, atib, and Allah, min rih misk. Atibu, and Allah, min rih misk. That the breath of the fasting person, and the scholars explain what's this khuluf. Khuluf is something that is detested. They say kariha. Normally, if you wake up, what do we say when a person wakes up and you smell his breath? Say, ooh, yeah, breath stink. Because why? A person's been sleeping for 8 hours. This is Sa'im, the one who's fasting. He didn't eat. She didn't eat, unless during the night he's waking up like me, la hawla wa la quwwata billah, drinking, putting the bottle back. But that's still a type of fast if you go for hours without eating. Nah. So this is why the breath stinks. There's no motion, the mouth is closed for long periods of time, bacteria, the temperature of the body, nothing in the mouth to quench the thirst or relieve the person from hunger, nor to make the smell good. No air is coming in, fresh air. So this is khuluf. Khulufu fa'ni sa'im, the breath of the fasting person. Kariha. It is something that is disliked. But the point the Sheikh is making, that is one of the things that Allah has given this ummah. They didn't give any other ummah because their breath stunk. But they didn't have this from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what is this? As Sheikh Mukbir used to say, Mada means, and what is this? He used to say that a lot. And brothers ask me, what's Mada? Because I say it so much. And I say, what is this? Like you say, and what? And then you make your point. So the Sheikh, what is this? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us, He didn't give the other nations, as it relates to the breath of the person who's not eating, drinking, has a bad breath, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala atibu and Allah min rihil misk. It's better in the sight of Allah, more beloved than that which is the smell of misk. And we all know when people have on musk oil and things of this nature, it brings a good smell. Like, man, what's that? That smells good. So this is one of the khalas that Allah gave this ummah. One of the special characteristics, that our breath to Allah is better than the smell of sweet musk for the one who's fasting. And this doesn't mean that people should go around, astaghfirullah. As Americans, we have humor. No one understands our humor. Arabs, Asians, maybe some whites, but we have a type of humor that's just right down from jahiliyyah, from ignorance. You shouldn't go around blowing your breath in somebody's face because it's atib and Allah, misk. They might smack you. Your breath is not smelling like that to them. That's to Allah, Azza wa Jal. Allah musta'an. Allah help us. The next thing the Shaykh, he mentions, after the issue of the smell of the breath of the fasting person. He mentions yastaghfiru lahum. Naam, la, that's with the ta. Tastaghfiru lahum. Tastaghfiru lahum al-malaikatu. The angels, they seek forgiveness for those people while they're fasting. This is important to learn what is fasting, because a person can blow his fast. A person can blow her fast. And with that, you lose the benefit of the second thing that is mentioned in the narration. Tastaghfiru lahum al-malaikatu hatta yuftiru. Until they break their fast, this goes on. So not only you have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala deeming the breath, making the breath with him like misk, encouraging the person to fast. You want your breath to smell like that to your Lord, or your Lord is that pleased with your fasting, it's going to encourage you to fast. It's going to encourage you not to worry about what people are going to say, because, yeah, they're going to smell your breath if you have to talk or this and that, but, you know, with dignity and not false pride, but pride that you feel good about something. You say, I'm fasting. This is for my Lord. You say, alhamdulillah. And the second thing the Shaykh mentioned, that the angels, they make dua for you, hatta yuftaru. And this is the big one. I mean, you have the whole day. People complain and say, oh man, it's hard, it's hot, this and that. But you complain, take your complaints to Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala, make dua, ask Allah. Meanwhile, the angels are asking with you. Meanwhile, they're asking with you until you break your fast. The third thing the Shaykh mentioned was يُزَيِّنَ اللَّهُ كُلَّ يَوْمٍ جَنَّتُهُ. Naam. And that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ماذا يُزَيِّنَ لِعِبَادِهِ جَنَّتُهُ subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah decorates every day for that servant his Jannah. What does this mean, decorate? We understand in the world of decor, to beautify something, to make something look appealing, to make something look advertising. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He makes in the eyes of that believer, in the heart of that believer, every day, he sees the Jannah in front of him. He dresses up this fast with the Jannah, as if the Jannah is right there where you can reach it. And this, again, is one of the things that makes a person hold on for 30 days, 29 days, happy. As the Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned on Sama Ramadan, and the Bukhari and Muslim, Imanan wa ihtisaban, ghufira lahu ma taqaddam min dhanbih. Whosoever fasts in Ramadan, Imanan wa ihtisaban, Imanan, yani he believes that fasting is something that he has to do. He's not just doing it like people say, I'm doing it to lose weight or want to get in shape, or like they used to say when I was in college, going to school in Newark, you have a lot of people that are African American. They're like pro-Islam just because the Nation of Islam, and it was like a black thing. So you will find people saying, I'm fasting too. And I remember someone saying that to me, and I said, oh, you're Muslim? And they said, no, but I fast every Ramadan. SubhanAllah. And I said, well, like, you know, being baffled, like, what do you do? I mean, you have to, like, do certain things to get certain rewards. And, like, do you pray, or, like, what do you do? Like, and they said, I just do it to lose weight. And I like to do it during the time where the Muslims are doing it, because I have some friends that's Muslim and so on. So here, on Tabarak wa Ta'ala, He's decorating the Jannah for the believers. This ain't no Weight Watchers or Jenny Craig. This is, you're looking at the Jannah. That's why Tabarak wa Ta'ala said, if you go back to the verse, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, so that you can be pious. This is the issue of bad against evil. This is the issue of an-nar wa Jannah, going to Jannah or going to the nar. So here, the third thing he mentioned And the narration is that every day Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He beautifies the Jannah yani, for that servant. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He asked about His righteous servants, plural. Is there anything that they want to seek from Him out of fear? And that those servants, anything that they would seek from Him out of being afraid of harm and that which is debasement. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions that asking for them. Is it anything that they want? Bragging about the servant and making it something for the servant to strive for. And that they yusiru ilayka, that they come to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where in other times they wouldn't come to Allah. And this is something we should understand. We say Ramadan Muslim. And now, they might be Ramadan Muslim. Indeed they are. But this is not always for us to take face value and say he's half-stepping, or she's not serious, or they just come around to eat, or. But that it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, yuzayyina lahum jannatahu. He makes it in that month appealing to them. Whether it's just 1 month out of the whole year, He makes it appealing to them, where they would do things, that we would do things, the believers would be enthused, and they will be vigorated, and they would be people of ambition running towards the Jannah, where perhaps the other times they would not. And this is one of the blessings that the Shaykh, why he's trying to point out the 5 things that's been given to this ummah by using this hadith, showing that this is solely out of the mercy of Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. A person would all of a sudden in 1 month, all of the things of disobedience and that which is negligence and obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if that person is a new person in that 1 month. Subhanallah, of striving, of fearing and being afraid of going to hell, of having some consciousness of what he or she says or does if they fall asleep, and making repentance, asking Allah for His forgiveness, rushing. As we know, it's a bit out of order that a person doesn't show that same amount of eagerness for the 5 salah. May Allah help us all. But the point is, in Ramadan, Allah has made it for the believer that He turns it up. So you find the people rushing out to pray in the night. And you find the people who normally won't give, maybe they will give a little bit. People that are normally staying away from the houses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala coming to the houses of Allah. People that normally don't look to the Quran, let alone pick up the Quran. They're picking up the Quran. All of this is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala beautifies Jannah for His servant. Alhamdulillah. And then the Shaykh, he mentions also in the narration, as Imam Ibn Uthaymin, rahimahullah ta'ala, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala yakfir lahum fi akhir laylatin, that Allah will forgive them in the last part of a night. And it's something I just noticed just looking at it. Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala didn't mention with alif lam, the night. He said a night. And it is the thing that triggers the next thing that comes in the narration. They asked the Messenger, alayhi salatu wasalam, Hal hiya laylatul qadr? They said, is this night the night of decree? Because the Prophet, he didn't, in this narration, even though it's da'if, the wording doesn't show, but he said the night. Everybody would have knew, oh, the night, oh, that's the night of decree. But they asked, is this the night of decree? Because it was mentioned in the, as they say, nakiraton. It was generally not specified in a specific night. And the Prophet ﷺ told them, La. He said, no, it's not Laylatul Qadr. Rather do what you have been doing or work, striving, and you shall get the reward. And that's similar to the hadith of Mu'adh ibn Jabal, when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to him, أتدري ما حق الله على عباده وحق العباد على الله؟ قال الله ورسوله أعلم. قال حق الله على العباد أن يعبدوه ولا أن تعبدوه ولا تشركوا به شيئا وحق العباد على الله أن لا يعذبه من لم يشركوا به شيئا أو كما قال. Prophet he said to Mu'adh, do you know the right? Right here means something that someone has to give up. This is what's owed to you. So he said, do you know the right of Allah upon his servant? Allah has a right, has something that the servant has to give to Allah. That's called Haqq Allah ala al-ibadi. Allah's right is upon the servant to deliver that right to Allah. He said, and do you know? And then he switched around. The servant has something that Allah has to deliver to that servant. Has to deliver. So do you know that thing which is Haqq al-ibadi ala Allah? So Mu'adh, he said, Allah wa rasuluhu a'lam. Allah and his messenger knows best. Then the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, the right of Allah, the thing that Allah has to give up is that, the right of Allah, meaning the thing that the servant has to give to Allah, is that he has to worship Allah. That you should worship Allah, that servant of Allah, and not make partners with Allah. That's what you have to give to Allah. That's his right. And the right of the servant that Allah has to give up to the servant is that if you give Allah his right, you worship him, and you don't make shirk with him in any way, then Allah won't punish you. So Mu'adh said to the Prophet, Ya Rasulullah, we're making the point here, where when they asked the Prophet, is this night that Allah will forgive us in this particular night, Laylatul Qadr? The Prophet answered them, and we know again this hadith is da'if jiddan, but the meaning is okay from the likes of what we're about to mention in this hadith in Bukhari and Muslim. When Mu'adh asked the Prophet, after he told him what was the right of Allah on the servant and the right of the servant on Allah, he said, should I not go inform the people? He was eager. Let me go tell them this. All y'all got to do is worship Allah. Don't make shirk with him. And guess what? He won't punish you. That's his right. He has to not punish you. You worship him and don't make shirk. Prophet said, La tubashiruhu. La tubashiruhum. It said, do not go tell them anything. He said, because if you tell them, fayaktafilu, they're going to become reliable. They're going to become, as they say, comfortable or complacent with that. They're going to say, okay, all we got to do is worship Allah and don't make shirk. But they're going to kill, they're going to drink, they're going to rob, they're going to rape, they're going to take hostages, they're going to do everything except make shirk to Allah. He said, no, don't go tell them. They're going to depend on that. Here, the Prophet ﷺ, in this weak hadith, the wording is similar. He told them, no, it's not Laylatul Qadr. Just do what you do of actions of good in Ramadan, and what you do, you will get that reward. Because had he told him Laylatul Qadr, a cat gonna lay back and boy and do everything under the sun and just depend on Laylatul Qadr. Subhanallah. So this is from the wisdom that we can take from the Prophet ﷺ in the authentic hadith of Mu'adh, when the Prophet asked him, do you know the right of Allah on his servant and the right of the servant on Allah, as well as the benefits we can take from this narration that can't be used as evidence because it is stated by ulama, hadith is da'if jiddan, that sometimes it's not good to tell the person, depending on the nature of the thing and who it is and when, because you won't do any good to them, rather you'll do harm. And this doesn't mean you have to lie, but sometimes you have to use a little outsmarting a person for their own benefit, because maybe you will tell them certain things in a certain way and they will take it the wrong way. As people, you mentioned Wallahu Ghafur Rahim. Allah is forgiving, all merciful. And indeed, this is true. But how many of our people have taken that to think, all I have to do is ask Allah to forgive me, to forgive me, to forgive me, to forgive me. But they don't take the other part, Wallahu Shadidun Dhun Tiqam, that Allah is Shadid, He's quick, severe to take you to account. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, yani, batasha rabbika la shadid, na batasha rabbika la shadid, that Allah, when He gets you, it's not like somebody else getting you in the jam. If Allah sees you, it's over. You won't be in trouble with anybody but your Lord. You get in trouble with your Lord, you might not be any more use for yourself or nobody. So here the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the hadith of Mu'adh, he told them no for a reason. They want the people to rely on just the issue of worshiping Allah without shirk. And similarly, here in the issue of this wording, they asked the Prophet about the night which the deeds will be forgiven. Is it Laylatul Qadr? And the narration went as such. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentioned in His book, وَلْتَكُمْ مِنْكُمْ أُمَّةٌ يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also mentioned تِلْكَ خَيْرَ أُمَّةٌ أُخْرِجَتْ لِلنَّاسِ. He said, let there be a nation that advises and calls the people to all that is good, and they prohibit that which is evil. Then in the top of the next page, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, you are the best nation to ever come forth from the people. How? On their own, like the Big Bang Theory. How did they come forth and how are they the best? They had nothing to do with the scheme of things. This is solely Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hand-picking those people in that generation, knowing their hearts as He created their hearts to be the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and this is why they were the best. He's the best prophet, the best messenger, because his mission was to the world, where each person before him, they say, Ya qawmi, i'budullah, ma lakum ilahun ghayruh. O my people, worship Allah. You have no other deity that you should be worshiping besides Him. But the Prophet ﷺ said, Ya ayyuhan nas, inni rasulullahi ilaykum jami'an. O people, verily I am the messenger of Allah to all of you. Allahu Akbar. So he has to be the best prophet. He has to have the best deen. And Allah Azza wa Jal, He is al-adl, the just, the total just. Therefore, he surrounded him with the best people. And Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala mentioned, تَأْمَرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَتَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ وَتُؤْمِنُونَ بِاللَّهِ. That is because you are enjoying the good and you prohibit the evil, you believe in Allah. وَلَوْ آمَنَ أَهْلُ الْكِتَابِ لَكَانَ خَيْرٌ لَهُمْ. And if the people of the book would have accepted your message, Muhammad, it would have been better for them. مِنْهُمُ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ وَأَكْثَرُهُمْ فَاسِقُونَ. Some of them are believers, meaning they accepted Islam, but the majority of them throughout this time to Yawm al-Qiyamah, they will be fasiqun, they will reject the message of Islam. So, the Shaykh, he brings this verse, Shaykh Uthaymeen, at the top of the page, showing that similarly Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala mentioned them as the best nation, the Muslims. And this is the proof that we were given special things that other nations weren't given, even in Ramadan, but you can't use that hadith as a proof of that. That's why he brought the verse at the top of the page. And we look at how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent revelation. And I remember last year we were covering issues of Ramadan and the veil. And I went, and there is an authentic narration where Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala's Prophet mentioned that the Suhuf Ibrahim was sent down to him in Ramadan, the pages of Ibrahim. What Torah li Musa in Ramadan, Torah to Musa. Wal Injil Isa ibn Maryam to Isa in Ramadan. Was Zabura li Dawood, and the Zabura to Dawood in Ramadan. وهكذا القرآن نزل في Ramadan. And likewise the Quran was sent down in Ramadan. Subhanallah. All of them. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the Quran from the place that he sent it all in one night, and then in stages over the period of the Prophet's life, around 23 years. Then it came down to him in stages. And this shows the might that Allah sends his whole book, the Quran, down to a particular part of the heavens from above his throne in one night. SubhanAllah. It's a mighty night. SubhanAllah. Just because of it being his speech, there's no other revelation that can match the Quran. No other. Even in its pure form. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَا سَبْعَ مَثَانِي وَالْقُرْآنِ الْعَظِيمِ. And indeed, we have given you the verses that are repeated 7 times in the magnificent, the great Quran. No other people had 7 verses that they repeat so many times. Those 7 verses, Al-Fatiha. Al-Fatiha used for the 5 daily prayer. Al-Fatiha used for the extra prayers that's highly recommended. Al-Fatiha is used for the extra prayers that are specified for certain times. Al-Fatiha is used for extra prayer that's not specified and it's unrestricted. You can pray it at any time. Al-Fatiha is used for Salat al-Eid, which is one of the prayers that's an obligation. Al-Fatiha is used for Salat Istisqa, the prayer when you have a drought and you pray for rain. And we prayed that prayer in desperate need in Yemen before, and as soon as we finished, the rain came down, subhanAllah. Al-Fatiha is recited for the khusuf, whether it be lunar or solar, when the sun meets with the moon. Pray that Al-Fatiha with that. Al-Fatiha is used for Salat al-Janaiz, when a person dies. Al-Fatiha is used for Salat al-Khawf in the time of war. Al-Fatiha is used at the time when a person is sick from a sting, from a scorpion, or he or she has fever, or any type of issue like the evil eye, or black magic, or someone has a omen on him. Al-Fatiha is used for a lot of things. And this is the 7 most repeated verses of the Quran. Something that nobody else has been given. So we have from amongst the Deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala many things that we could highlight that's in that category that Allah chose and gave, blessed us, this ummah, that He didn't give other ummah. Every ummah had a prophet and a messenger. As prophet is one Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks to and inspires them, requests them to do something. Messenger, a step further, he's given a book with a legislation, rules and regulations. But none from amongst them has their deeds, their actions, their sayings recorded like our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. SubhanAllah, none of them. This is a special blessing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given this ummah. As Prophet sallam said, Inni utitu Qur'ana wa mithluhu ma'ahu. Indeed, I've been given the Quran and something like it along with it. Yeah. So the Shaykh Uthaymeen, in the beginning of his book, this was one of the things he brought, this hadith that is da'if jiddan, but it had those 5 things we mentioned that we can look at. And the last thing he mentioned, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tasuffa the shayateen. Naam, tasuffa the shayateen, and that the shayateen, they are lacked, stowed away. There's so much explanation around the likes of this hadith. Right. Some of the ulama, they mention that the devils are locked up and that the head of them is included, Iblis. And that the person's jinn, let's not mistake the Qareen, even though this word Qareen means jinn and he whispers to you bad. You don't find in the hadith they call him a shaitan. They just say Qareen, meaning he's close to you and he's always inviting you to something that's not good for you. But when we say the shayateen, we understand these to be the troops of the head, Iblis. They make havoc. They do a lot of evil. When we say jinn, this could mean that he's just from that species, that creation. Like, I'm a human being, you're a human being, he's a human being, she's a human being, but we come from different nationalities and different tongues and backgrounds. We're all human beings. So jinn, this is general, but shayateen is the evil from amongst the jinn, and from amongst the jinn are some of those that believe. So here, the mentioning of the shayateen being locked down, chained, some of them say literally that's it. But then others say no, the meaning isn't that they're chained, but they're restrained. They have been restrained to the point that their effect is minimum, where you will have the upper hand, and this will allow you, as we mentioned in the beginning of the dars, to do all of those things that normally you can't do because of this heavy influence. And one of the dalil they use for this is that the hadith of Abu Hurairah radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, where a man came, but this man was the shaitan in the form of a man. Abu Hurairah caught this man stealing from the zakat al-fitr. Not the money, zakat al-mal, the fitr. And we know, stuck for the lungs, the people in this day and time, they like to collect money. We dealt with this last year too, and we'll deal with it this year again. The way of the Prophet ﷺ, it could have said dinar wa dirham. Each person give 5 dinar. Each person, for each one of your family, give khamsa dirham. He didn't. They gave food stuffing, because the issue is you've been fasting all Ramadan. Tomorrow's Eid, you need to eat in order to be happy. If someone needs more clothing or something new to look nice on Eid, then we have zakat that people give, or you give yani sadaqah from your wealth. But this zakat al-fitr, this is from food. And many of the ulama of the sunnah, they mention this is yani an obligation to give it the way the Prophet said. A saw of this, a saw of that, which is the measurement they already made clear. A saw is like 4 handfuls. But the point here is that there's a distinction between that food and money. And you see it in the hadith where the man was coming to steal from that zakat al-fitr. So we know that this was collected for distribution for the people. And it was close to Eid, because they don't give zakat al-fitr at the beginning. As some ulama have said, it's okay to give your zakat al-fitr in the beginning. La, you should give it 2 days at most before Eid. 2 days at most before Eid, not the beginning of Ramadan. His zakat al-fitr. So Abu Hurairah called him and he complained, "Oh, I'm poor and my family don't have anything to eat, blah, 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 blah." Hurairah told him, "Okay, take it, because if a person is poor like that, he can go." And then he came back a second time, and Abu Hurairah told him, "Listen, you get out of here." And he promised, "Okay, no." And then he came the third time. He said, "That's it. I'm taking you to the Prophet." And when he snatched him up, he told him, he said, "Listen, if you let me go this time, I'll tell you something that if you say it, no evil will touch you after you read it." Okay, Abu Hurairah was going to tell him, "No, I'm taking you to the Prophet." No, he wants that thing, you know. He told him Ayatul Kursi. So after he told him, he let him go. Abu Hurairah went to the Prophet and he told him the story. And the Prophet said, "Sadaqa wa huwa kadoob." Sadaqa wa huwa kadoob. He spoke the truth, but he's a habitual liar. Show you the liars can tell the truth sometimes. He said kadoob. In Arabic, kadoob means he lies a lot. Kadoob. He didn't say kadab, he said kadoob. That means he's lying a lot. Like most of what he says is lies. He mixes a little bit of truth, the rest, forget it. It's all lies. And the point here is that took place in Ramadan. How did he come shaitan in the form of a man if he was locked down? So some ulama take the hadith and they explain it by this hadith and say being chained doesn't mean he's chained like in jail. It means he's restrained. Allah takes some of his power and influence so that people will be able to do more worship and more obedience to Allah Ta'ala. And there's many other points, explanations around this, but because of the time, we ask Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala to give us a benefit on what we heard and to make us of those sa'imun who fast for sake, and the muttaqun, those who enter the Jannah, those who the Prophet said, "La yadkhulu Jannah illa muttaqun." None will enter the paradise except those who are the pious. Any questions?
That's beautiful. That last piece truly makes sense. Yeah. He came during Ramadan, so if they're chained up like you hear most people say, how?
If this is the meaning, they're chained.
Okay. They're chained.
But what does that mean?
Yes, what does it really mean? It means they're restrained.
Like restrained. Restrained.
It's still around.
It
still can influence, but it's weak.
It's weak.
Because there was an influence right there. Don't take me, man. I got my children.
A'udhu billahi min shaitanir rajim. You know, and you know, if somebody tells you that you don't know he's shaitan, you don't know he's lying, you gotta let them go, because the one who's poor, you gotta give him anyway. Right. So that's for the poor people. Go ahead, take it, get out of here.
And this one knew, Abu Hurairah, he knew he had to give up this.
He had to give it up.
In charge of it.
It had to been nuts. We'd have kicked them out when they gave nothing. And they might have been telling the truth. We wrong ourselves.
We beat them up.
But one thing we want to make clear in all of this is that it makes sense after the people that the Prophet said, al-ulama warathatul anbiya, that the scholars, they inherit this from the prophets, this ilm and this character. We couldn't have looked in there and pulled it out. The most knowledge seeking from amongst us, because we're not ulama, Allah didn't give us that foresight to look into the text and pull it out. This is why they are who they are, for one of the reasons, because Allah gave them that. And we thank Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala for our ulama. We ask Allah to have mercy on those who have died, guide those back to right, those who have went astray, and to bless those that are upon Sirat al-Mustaqim, to give us benefit from them while they are on this earth. اللهم استعان وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.